2024. The time is 7:01 p.m. Ben, would you please call the roll?
Member Orr?
Here.
Member Wyrick?
Here.
Member Owens?
Here.
Member McLeeser?
Here.
Member Shroya?
Here.
Member Warren?
Here.
Member Matheny is absent, and he was not able to join remotely as previously expected.
Motion to excuse member McLean.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, at this time, Mayor Wilder and Clerk of Council Ben Young would like to make a very special announcement. So go on.
Go ahead, Mr. Young. You're first.
Okay, well, it has been a great honor. Yeah, I was pretty sure.
As we are going forward with our city administration in consultation with Director of Administration, Ms. Farina, and to fulfill the position that she just vacated, after all the applications were received, it was deemed that our employee, Mr. Ben Young, will assume the role of Deputy Director of Administration. And I'm going to make council aware of that and our community aware of that. He assumes this position based on a number of things as we look at his accomplishments, his positive attitude that he has for this city, the initiatives that he's taken over his time that he has been employed with the city, his loyalty, and he's increasingly reliable. He's shown professional growth in just completing his Master's of Public Administration through Ohio University. His responsibilities now are going to increase, so keep that in mind, Ben. And a couple other things. He does possess some unique qualities and skills. He's very data analytical, data driven, which has been a welcome part of our administration. He produces a high quality of work. He has a great attitude to serve, and he also has a great attitude to learn more about management and leadership in city government. Oftentimes, he's gone above and beyond what's been asked of him. I think that the community has witnessed, let alone our city administration, the city council, and other departments have come to appreciate. And last but not least, he still goes above and beyond the call to help our citizens, our residents, our businesses, and do the best he can to answer their questions or inquiries. So I want to welcome Ben to his new position as Deputy Director of Administration for the City of Canton.
Thank you very much.
I have a motion on the floor that's permitted, President. If there's, well, let's say this. Is there a motion on the floor to second and accept the resignation of Benjamin Young from the position of Clerk of the Council? I need to propose that first.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Ben Young, is there someone that you have in mind that would take your place as Clerk of Council?
As I put in my resignation letter, which President Shroya has, it would be my recommendation that you all, at the very minimum for the interim period, appoint Liam Ott as your Clerk of Council. He has been doing an excellent job training under me. I feel he is more than capable of taking on the role, and I want to assure you all that if some weird thing comes up, I am not abandoning him. I will certainly be willing to jump in and help out as he asks me to, not preemptively.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Lee.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Let's see, moving on.
You need to establish your timeline for a permanent appointment.
Okay, so I'll make the motion to request administration on council's behalf to post an internal job opening for the stipend position of clerk of council. The posting should be posted June 4th, 2024 and remain open until June 16th, 2024. The council will conduct interviews with eligible applicants in the executive session on June 24th, 2024. So I made the motion. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to finance. Stephanie.
Looking at different appropriations, there are a few different ones. Gina, I'll let you go over those. A couple I was excited about is we've talked a lot about some of our properties that we've been holding throughout the city, and we were buying them for certain reasons, and certain reasons have either not happened or different reasons causing us to want to sell them at this point. So we've had a couple properties that have sold, and so that was one thing I was excited about, and then I'll let you talk about a couple of the others. But
Both of those properties should close June 15th, and the gross proceeds will revert back to the city and start to fill that budget gap that we were experiencing at the end of last year.
And Gina, can you say just a side note on what each of them approximately made? I know we won't know the fees and attorney fees, but
Right, it's
It
close
was a
to
win.
$150,000 on what was part of the Flume property, and the other one is the backfill properties. That one is a total about $635,000 is the gross. The Flume we have a loan on, so we will only net.
Right. Okay, thank you.
As far as appropriations, though, on the expenditure side, then we have a few others to look at. We received some donations, so we want to be able to appropriate money so that the police and the fire can spend those donations. We also had some severance payout from employees who had left the city. We owe them their vacation time, so we need some of the budget to be able to pay that. And then also Rob Graham, our city engineer, is finishing up Charlotte Street, if you remember, and so he's requested at the last meeting $175,000 to finish the roundabouts and signaling, and then we'll receive about 17.7% back on that. So we would like to obviously amend the revenue side of that as well. And then we're asking for about $48,000 to replace how many trees on Wood Road? So that was the other one that we want to obviously get in before tree planting season has left us. So we would request for that one as well. And then also the last one is our water intern. We have the water inventory intern that is helping us with our water service line inventory. We're requesting 2 more months for her to continue working. The project is well on its way, and Liam can actually speak a lot more on the details of that, but we're about halfway, close to halfway, over halfway. And so we would like to-
Approaching halfway.
Okay. July and August, we'd like to keep her on staff, and so we're requesting a few more hours for her to continue working on that project for us.
Any other questions? Do we ever look into, like, on Woodrow? Are there places that would give us grants or something for tree replacement or?
We've gotten grants,
Yeah.
not for the trees, but we got grants for the rest of the project.
Is that
Spoke to a
common?
local person who would like to donate, but was
Right.
interested in this project.
Hmm.
But
He's doing another-
Maybe in another area.
Right. Is this common that we do replacement trees like this? I haven't seen this on the agenda before.
Well, the back street, you know.
It was a bad one.
It's
It
our
was a bad one.
destination street, we had to remove the trees because we'll be looking at different properties and to remove the sidewalks, so back and
Right.
the trees.
Right.
So we really thought this out into the type of trees and, making sure that this happens again. But this has been a destination street, if you will, is what we call it, with the trees.
We do a streetscape, usually part of the project. This one was a little bit special.
Okay. All right, I move to the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Point of order, even though I'm not your clerk anymore. You guys have actually already moved this ordinance to the agenda, but instead of having you vote on 2 appropriations at the same night next week, we brought this one back to committee to ask you to amend it. So we actually need a motion to amend ordinance 48, not move to the agenda.
I'll make the motion to amend ordinance 48-2024.
And I'll still second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Young and other outbursts like that will
You
move
know,
on.
have to removed.
Moving on to ordinance and rules. John?
This is an ordinance amending Chapter 1709, Health and Sanitation of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton in order to establish for keeping of bees within the City of North Canton. Liam's got some neat statistics and stuff.
Okay, so over the last couple weeks, I've done some extensive research into how best to regulate beekeeping in urban areas. This follows a similar trend with cities like Akron and Lakewood. Lakewood has a pretty comprehensive ordinance set up. So we went ahead and reached out to the Ohio Department of Agriculture's apiary program to see if they had any recommendations. We didn't get anything specific back, but they do have a lot of resources on their page, so we structured it a lot based on those recommendations. So basically what we're going to do is restrict the amount of beehives. There were a couple properties that have had quite a few on their property, which can actually inhibit pollinator populations and can be bad for the environment if there's too many bees in one area. One beehive can actually hold up to 60,000 bees. So if you get that many bees in one area and start stacking up multiple hives, it can basically put too many in one area and they won't travel that far, that they're basically stepping over each other and it does more harm than good. So what the regulations will establish is a requirement of 2,500 square feet of total land, whether that's built or unbuilt, just per property. 2,500 square feet total per hive. So anything less than 2,500 square feet, you can't have any hives. And then anything over, if you have enough for two, etc., and so on. They can only be located in the rear or side yards. And then there are some regulations on the sizing of the hives. And it's based on what's best for colonies. So basically 2 chambers that are living space for hives and then 2 extra frames on top that are for honey collection. So that gives enough space for the hive to survive winters, no matter how harsh or mild, but also lets beekeepers still harvest a decent amount of honey per year. One hive can generate around 40 pounds of honey, so I mean, people really aren't going to be missing out on that much. And I don't think we have any commercial honey processors in the city that would need anything like that. Establishing a foot of ground clearance for hives, just to keep them off the ground. If they're low to the ground, it can cause pests. Things like skunks and possums and raccoons love to raid beehives if they're located on the ground. And keeping them up off the ground also keeps pets and other stray animals from coming up to them, potentially causing them to react defensively, which can put people at risk. We're also setting a 25-foot clearance from any right-of-ways, public roads, just to keep people away from the beehives, just in case anybody's allergic. So basically on any properties that these setbacks can't be maintained, you can't have hives. And then there's some additional maintenance regulations. You're responsible for your hive's behavior. So if they were to swarm, leave the hive or anything like that, you're responsible for it. If your hive or any of your equipment attracts another hive, you are responsible for that, and that's subject to state code. So you're responsible for any bees basically on your property en masse. And we will require beekeepers to provide water for their colonies on premises. And that's to keep them from traveling too far. Again, if you're providing stuff for your hives on your property, they'll stay there, they won't travel too far, and it just mitigates risk to the public.
So by way of background, how this came about is we got a nuisance complaint from a neighbor of someone who had 8 hives on an R50 lot. And they were, in particular, the water thing, they were at the next door neighbor's pool drinking the pool water all the time and made it not nice to get in the pool. So originally talking to Safe Built and Marty, keeping bees is technically an agricultural use, so we could have just banned it outright as not permitted in residential zones because it's agricultural. But that felt like we were going too heavy-handed the other direction. So I would compare this very much to, Stephanie will remember the chicken ordinance. So we're trying to find that happy middle ground of you can keep bees, but they need to be, you know, in such a way that your neighbors aren't being disturbed by the bees.
About how many beekeepers or bee people are in the city of North Canton?
We have a list of at least 8 that we warn every time we do mosquito fogging to cover their hives.
Okay.
There are probably more that we don't know of.
Would they have to register?
So, per the state code, I think it's chapter 909, you have to register anyways. That's
Okay.
a state requirement, and the state comes out and inspects and makes sure that everything is safe. So this just adds a little bit of extra padding for our city.
So my question, so I think this is a good idea, and, you know, hearing the story about the bees going to the pool, I don't have a pool, but I've got a water garden, a water feature in the backyard, and the neighbor has a beehive, and so I've seen bees coming into our backyard, and so that makes sense, and I like the idea of regulation. However, who's going to be monitoring this? I mean, is this going to fall under safe bill? Where are we going to need to hire the bee police and have an unconditional position in the city? I guess I just want to make sure that we're not boxing ourselves in with a piece of legislation that we can't enforce.
It would be a property code, just like the
Okay.
chicken or the
Similar
stray
to
cat
chicken.
laws we
Okay.
have of if your neighbor complains, then we'll send a code enforcement officer out, and if you're compliant, then we'll walk away, and if you're not compliant, we'll ask you, move the hive X number of feet, or what. Like the issue that sparked this, you know, the woman who owned the hives was very nice, very willing to move the hives, very willing to.
Right.
There was no malicious intent, and I think most people don't have
Right.
any sort of malicious intent.
I'll make a motion, we
I
put it
think
on.
Stephanie wanted to talk
Oh.
about the chicken
Oh,
ordinance.
sorry. I make a motion that we put this on the agenda for next week.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. At this time, City Council and the mayor will appoint 8 members of the public to a focus group for the purpose of a proposed fire station project. Each council member and the mayor are invited to make 1 nomination each. The focus group will convene to review the available options for funding of the project. As Liam calls your name, please state the name of your appointment for the record.
Member Stroya?
Bill Knapp.
Member Wyrick?
Jeff Stocker,
Member Owens?
Katie Lewis,
Member McLeister?
Andy Ziegler.
Member Warren?
Nicole Cardinal.
Member Orr?
Matt Robar.
Mayor?
Ted Hall.
And Member Matheny submitted his in writing, and that was Holly Pierpont.
Okay. Those are the nominations. Good to know. Congratulations. Thank you for participating. Because each one of these gets one back. Let's go back to personnel. This is Dave's project. So Melissa, if you would like to take that, or
I was gonna say, do you want to take that particular?
yeah, I will. Okay, so hold this up. History. So. So, I was first kind of, this is the lift ordinance. The history of this is when the pandemic came along, a lot of the staffing of the nursing homes and assisted living places, they cut staffing. So orderlies were one of the first things that they cut. And since then, the amount of emergency calls to EMS all across the nation has increased drastically. And instead of properly staffing. A lot of places have just gone and decided that the emergency services was going to be their staffing. And we don't bill for that, which is pretty ridiculous. And I saw it firsthand happen in Jackson Township when my father was in a nursing home. And I'm sitting outside during the pandemic in a window, and he falls, and I can't go inside to pick him up. And the nurses were not strong enough to pick him up. He was a big guy like me. And they had to call the EMS, and it took 15 minutes for them to come to pick him up, to put him on a gurney, because they weren't staffed properly with orderlies. Now coming back, I have an aunt in the nursing home too, so I talked to the director, and I'm also searching for a nursing home for my mother. And so I've talked to several, and they're still understaffed, which is pretty ridiculous to think about. So this ordinance basically allows us to charge a fee, and the fee we agreed to talk about is $250 for the call. It's not fair to the city and to the taxpayers that when this happens, our EMS has to go, and then they have to get a replacement group for the EMS. This cause, hopefully it's a deterrent for people making the call. If it happens, 4 times a day, it's $1,000. They should be able to properly staff their facilities. So that's why I wanted this legislation to come forward.
So the facilities are charged?
Yes.
Now, is that enough money? $250? What's the normal cost for a call?
We got some information from Jackson Township, and at least based on what they provided us, that's what they charge. We feel that that's pretty reasonable based on.
And to be clear, this would only be charged if no other service was provided.
It's
So
solely a lift.
if all we did was a lift assist, then the facility, if the person is injured and does receive medical care, they would not be charged.
I mean, it would be charged back to the family library, so
Yeah.
we have to recoup our money in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
I'm glad you put this, request this go forward. I know you and I have had conversations about this for almost a year. I think it just makes sense. As the fire department is one of our larger line items, we should certainly be recouping our costs when where we can.
Agreed. And if
Recommended,
sorry, go ahead.
this was recommended in the Fitch report too, right? Okay.
Yeah. If $250, if we find that's not enough, then we amend that. But I think it's a good starting point. I think it's fair. It's very simple legislation. So I'll make a motion to move that item to the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to 5C. Melissa, if you'd like to take that.
Sure. Ben, are you going to present on this?
I am, yes.
Do you want to just kick it off?
Sure. So, 2 times ago, I believe, when we discussed this, it was made pretty clear from council that you guys wanted exact specifics on if we joined a regional center, what would that look like? So administration has been speaking to members of the emergency services, particularly the police department, and we have for you tonight a plan of if we joined a regional center, in this case the Red Center, as was the unanimous recommendation of the people who assess the facilities, what that would look like. Just to sort of give you guys even more detail as you consider this. So an overview is that what we're about to talk about has 2 core pieces to it. Part 1 is joining the Red Center for emergency and non-emergency dispatching services, and then part 2 is civilian support roles for North Canton's emergency services. As I said, it was drafted with input from emergency services personnel. Heavy caveat that this is not a final plan, and don't, rest your hat on this is absolutely what we're doing. Any action to make this reality will take approval from all of you, will take negotiating a contract with Red Center, approval from Red Center's board, all those wonderful caveats. Okay, so part one, joining the Red Center. All emergency and non-emergency dispatching services would be transferred to the Red Center, currently located in Jackson Township. We would become a member agency of Red Center, or really member agencies, police and fire, for an estimated total cost in 2024 of $430,000. Their pricing is $13.91 per person for police and $57.30 per call for fire EMS. That's the same pricing for all member agencies. Red Center, unlike the other three options, has a unique Council of Governments model. For them specifically, it's called a logic board that would give us seats on the governing board to continue to have a say in how dispatching works.
How many seats?
So guaranteed 2, 1 for each agency. Anything more than that would require negotiation with their board, which I have not been authorized to do at this time and therefore have not engaged with. If we joined, we would be the third largest jurisdiction that they serve, and they would, I confirmed this on the phone with James Wood, the director of their center, earlier today. They will open the 4th police dispatching console that they already have set up, and they would have openings for 4 to 6. He confirmed for me today it would be 5. And their union, Mr. Wood has had some preliminary conversations with their dispatch union. Their union is open to doing a memorandum of understanding to allow any of our staff who transfer over to bring with them their years of service, seniority for sick time, vacation time, pay, everything except shift bidding. So
Back to the desk, the other desk that they're going to open up.
mhm.
When we were over there, we saw that they had dedicated desks for, what was it, for Jackson, for Maslin. Will this be a dedicated desk for North Canton, or will they just have 2 then stations that are lumped? with-
Yet to be decided. We will certainly be the largest agency at that desk, but we may, so they do have a dedicated desk for Jackson, but Hills and Dales is thrown in with Jackson. So it may be, that's the North Canton desk, plus we threw Wilmot in with them because Wilmot has 1 call every 6 hours. Right.
Okay.
We will certainly be the primary person on that desk. Okay. So then part 2, and there are more slides to this, so don't worry, is the civilian support roles. So this really grew out of visiting the other centers and other police departments, seeing some of the things they have, and then taking a step back and thinking about the types of civilian support services we provide for our service departments that are kind of missing right now for our emergency departments. So, like, nobody at the water treatment plant picks up your phone call. Somebody in administration picks up your phone call. Handling general inquiries, taking work order requests, fulfilling public records requests, those sorts of support functions that we give to all of our service departments, but have traditionally said to emergency services, figure it out yourself, have fun. So our proposal is to create with an asterisk 3 positions to provide these sorts of support roles for emergency services. A public safety analyst, an administrative assistant dedicated to each public safety department, and some public safety coordinators. So we'll go through each of those. So first is the public safety analyst. This would be backfilling me. So it's not a new position. We are simply going to take the position I held until before today and dedicate that solely to public safety, which is, in hindsight, currently I have been spending probably 70 to 80% of my time on emergency service projects anyway. But so no new FTE there. It would address their technological needs. Emergency services have a lot of specialized technology items. Their MDTs in their cars, alerting systems, I'm sure that I get on Chief Kemp's nerves sometimes with trying to get him into Duo and Office 365, those sorts of things. The goal of this person, their primary role would be to, what can we do to make emergency services more efficient? So manage key projects for them, and the first thing would be overseeing this transition to a regional dispatch center. This position would report to the administration. As I said, it's backfilling an open position, no new FTEs or costs. And for the purposes of the cost estimates we're going to get to in the end of this report, I used an estimated annual salary of $75,000, which will depend on qualifications, experience, who fills that role.
Now, is any of the dispatchers that we have now currently have the skills to do that?
In my personal opinion, yes. And it would certainly be open to them to apply should they wish to.
So we would post this position.
For all of these positions, we would start with internal postings and give our current dispatch personnel first crack.
Okay.
So second, our department administrative. So one administrative assistant dedicated to each department to do their scheduling, billing, court or hospital filings, answer general inquiries, fulfill public records requests. Their daily work would be supervised and directed by their respective chief. We already created this type of position for the fire department earlier this year, so there would be no new FTE, no new cost for that, but we would create one for the police department. For the purpose of the cost estimates at the end of this, that has an estimated annual salary of $59,000.
Is that what the fire?
That is what our top rate dispatchers currently make. So we kept the same
So
salary.
the person that does the fire, is that's what they're getting paid, $59,000?
I do not know. I personally do not know.
You know, Chief?
$20 an hour.
20? Thanks.
So then the third is what we're currently calling public safety coordinators. And this is based on a concept we observed while visiting other police departments during this project. So in particular, the city of Canton has not only dispatchers, but then they have civilian, they call them crime analysts, whose job it is that they help officers fill reports, they do the annual reports for the department, so currently we have our dispatchers kind of monitor cameras, and if we need somebody to go back and look at the cameras, a dispatcher does that. This person does that for the Canton Police Department so that it doesn't take a dispatcher away from answering the phone. Sort of separates those police support functions from dispatching functions. So very similar, this position would provide support on duty to personnel when they're handling situations. So monitoring cameras, reviewing archive footage, helping prepare reports, conducting paper trail investigations. So they're not going to go out in the field and collect evidence for the detective, but the detective might say, can you look up this person in leads and give me a short synopsis of who they are, what their known associates are, those sorts of things. So this is intended to help emergency services spend more time on the road and less time in the office than they currently do right now.
Would that be Canton's a city of about 75,000 or 80,000 people. We're a city of 17,000. Would they have enough to do if they only have one in Canton?
Canton has one at a time. They have 24-hour coverage, one at a time.
What type of coverage would we have?
Well, the next slide, we'll get there. So our proposal, at least to start, is a similar 24/7 coverage model during the week. So 3 full-time positions, 1 for days, 1 for afternoons, 1 for nights, with 2 to 4 part-time positions to cover weekends and time off for the full-timers. The full-time position for night shift, however, would be temporary for 1 year with the option to extend it, just to sort of get us through this transition period based on our call volumes night shift tends to be the quietest and have the least events occur. So that would be why night shift would be the one we'd look at after a year of, okay, is there enough, to your point, is there enough happening to keep this person occupied, or do we not need it?
Because there's been plans of putting a fourth unit on the road for the police department on, night shift. So we would have 4.
Potentially, yeah. So for the cost projections we're about to get to, full-time estimated salary again was $59,000, the exact same pay rate our top-level dispatchers are currently at, and part-time estimated annual salary is $30,000. That is a lower pay rate than what our dispatchers currently make, but it is the cap permitted by council in our exempt ordinance. So to get any higher than that, you all would need to amend the exempt ordinance and raise it. So in total, for job opportunities, the city would have, we currently have 9 full-time and 1 part-time dispatch personnel. In my opinion, existing personnel would be preferred candidates for all of these new positions that we're creating. Excluding the fire EMS administrative assistant that is already hired, we would have 5 full-time openings and 2 part-time openings. Combined with the expected minimum of 5 from the Red Center, that means, I'm sorry, my slide is wrong here, we would have 10 full-time opportunities for our current 9 full-timers and 2 part-time opportunities for our current 1 part-timer. So all staff would have employment opportunities should they choose to apply for them.
So now, I hear the word opportunity. If our dispatchers apply to the Red Center, are they guaranteed a position?
No. So Red Center, just like us, will do a screening test, and if you fail the screening test, you will be ineligible. I would be amazed if any of our current dispatchers could not pass the screening test.
Hayes is not guaranteed though.
Yeah.
And
They
we
wouldn't
did
want
have,
someone doing that job if they failed.
I
Fair enough, but.
spoke to Mr. Wood today, and he's had 4 of our dispatchers go and sit in with them, and he said all 4 impressed him greatly, and he sees no reason why they would not be hired. I mean, he knows our people. It's the dispatching community in Stark County is not huge.
Right. Do they understand that, our dispatchers now have every other weekend off? Do they understand they will not have that at the Red Center?
So they would not keep their shift bidding if
Right.
we went to Red Center, correct?
So they would have 2 days off during the week and go from there. But we've had 4 or 5 sit at the Red Center or just visit Mr. Wood, correct?
He told me we've had 4 go and do sit-ins for multiple hours
Okay.
with
good.
them.
Thank you.
Maybe next slide.
So how quickly would this be achieved? Before I get into this, I want to very heavily caveat that this is a potential timeline that is highly dependent on other people who are not yet agreed to any of this. So Stark County EMA, Red Center, our phone contractor, some of our public safety vendors. So assuming we set a target crossover date of October 1st, 2024, then in June, July, we would negotiate a contract with Red Center, finalize it. While that's ongoing, we would start to post these new positions. Because they have to be up for 2 weeks, so it gives us plenty of time. Do the interview process. July, August, we would start to, announce from who chose to apply to us, who got those positions. Red Center would start to post their open positions. We would start to shift some people out of roles, start to scale down our dispatching, begin some layout changes downstairs. August, September, then we would do CAD transfer back to the county CAD. New roles would start to take effect. People would really, truly be moved out of our dispatch as we start to wind down. and then we'd have final crossover occur in late September. Again, very hypothetical, lots of other people that would need to help me finalize that. So overall, including with the 5 new positions, we would save through 2031 a per year average of $416,000 annually, even with creating all 5 positions. It's a total, so we have 11 FTEs. Those 11 FTEs would be reduced. Oh, I have a summary slide. Why am I saying this? A summary slide. I was like, why am I trying to remember this? So the goal of the potential plan outlined is to achieve efficient operations while maintaining emergency services support. So we would join the Red Center. We would create 5 new positions for a total of 6 FTEs. So we'll go from 11 FTEs to 6 FTEs. There are job opportunities for all NC dispatch staff who choose to apply, and there's our estimated annual savings of $416,000.
I'll go ahead with me.
That's what I got.
What about, there's a lot of unanswered questions still in there, a lot of things in limbo.
Yeah, ask them that.
Well, there's a lot of things he's not sure of and stuff, he said it.
But you have to go forward to get those questions answered.
Okay, but wouldn't it be best to get the contract first, then? Why not?
That's all we're voting on tonight, is
Right.
to allow them to put
Start.
together a contract, start.
Start,
They can't do that, they can't do that without permission from us.
okay.
And then a lot of those questions become answered. We don't have a lot of those answers right now. All we have are exactly what we asked them to get were the numbers. We've talked with the police many times, we've talked with dispatch.
Now,
We've
what-
done a really good job collaborating with everybody.
Okay, I'm sure we have. Now, what happens if Stark County agrees to go regional, okay? And there could be a split in 2 years, 3 years, could be 5 years. What happens then?
What do you mean?
Where there's about, I don't know, 5 communities that are not, we're one of the 5, that don't belong to a regional dispatch. The state or the county, whoever, wants to go to one. That could happen in 2 years, it could happen in 3 years.
So you're asking what happens if we're forced to join a region?
Right.
I, in my personal opinion, would certainly say that if we join Red Center and are a member of that council of governments, we will be in a much stronger position to dictate our future if we're forced into a regional than if we are alone as North Canton. Because Red Center, so we join Red Center,
Right.
and the county wants to get to truly full regionalized. They're going to end up with at least 2 centers, and we'll see if they
Probably
convince
east-west,
Canton.
right,
Probably
right.
east-west.
Right.
Red Center is going to be very well positioned to be that west center. Particularly if we join, they will have almost 40% of the population of the county served by that center. In my opinion, we are, if that occurs and Stark County does really force everybody into a regional,
Right.
we will be in a better position to stand up for ourselves if we are with Jackson and Massillon and Wilmot and Hillsdale than if we're just by ourselves.
But that's all speculation because we don't know what Ohio's going to do.
Right.
Right.
So whereas we might be in better standing if we do something like that, that's not guaranteed. We have no control over what Ohio's going to do.
Right. No, not, and when.
Right, in the
And
win.
when.
So I think right now, we don't even worry about that question.
Mhm.
I've talked to a number of people who keep putting proposals together in the county. It's not a really relative question right now. We just have to focus on right now what's best for us.
I talked to former fire chief of Canton, happens to live in my ward, and he brought in some insight and some stuff. It was quite, he thinks we should join a center, he said, of course, Stark County would go to that, because all the calls go to Stark County right away anyway. All the 911 calls.
Yeah, so Red Center, the state is rolling out what's called an EZNet. So right now, you call 911, it pings your GPS location, not based on the GPS of the device you're holding, but on the GPS of the cell tower you responded from. And in order to get that cell tower is then programmed by the cell phone carrier to go to a specific 911 center. In order to get that reprogrammed, you have to go to every cell carrier on every tower and convince each one individually to reroute. So that's why right now it's just Canton and Stark County. The state in 25 is rolling out what's called an EZNet, which will ping 911 calls based off the location of the device, not the cell tower. And Red Center has already filed for, and as far as I'm aware, it will be approved in the county's 911 plan. They will become a primary answering point when that EZNet rolls out in 25. So there will no longer be a transfer at that time.
Looking at the red line, the keep with current staffing, I see 2024 estimated 1.151 million, and I see 2023 was 895,107. So it's a difference of about $250,000. Is that because of the equipment needing to be purchased? Is that why the $250,000 bump?
I'm sorry, I didn't follow. Can you ask me again?
Yeah, so there's a bump from 2023 to 2024. If we look at the keep with current staffing,
Yeah.
895, 107, and it goes up to 1,151,151.
Yes.
And then it hovers a little over $1 million and does go back down. Is that because of the equipment purchased?
Partially because of the equipment and also partially because their new contract took effect and the year one increase was 5-point-something%.
And then how many years was that equipment was what, about 300, was it $300,000 or $400,000?
So we pay a little over 100,000 this year and then 50,000 and change for the next 4 years.
Okay.
3 years, 4 years. Gina's not
So
giving
is
me a
that
nod.
50,000 put through each year then? Is that how you broke it down?
The equipment cost is in here full. That's why it
Yeah, how far
then
does the equipment cost go, I guess is my question.
to 27 and then the equipment will drop off.
Okay.
Okay. What would we estimate? So they're gonna, the Red Center was, what was it, 430, is that what it was?
Total, yeah.
So what do we expect it to be next year? Or 5 years from now, or 10 years from now? And I know I'm asking you a loaded question, but because the real scenario is that somebody could leave the Red Center, right? And then the costs are then equally divided amongst members. And so we could be faced with a scenario that is totally beyond our control, where we have a significant increase in costs.
We could. Their historic increases have been between 1% and 2%.
A year or
A year.
contract period?
A year. So of the two largest jurisdictions who pay by far and away the largest portion of Red Center's costs, the odds of them leaving are highly unlikely. They are, Jackson and Massillon are the founding members
Well,
of
yeah,
Red
it's
Center.
in Jackson's community building, yeah.
So then who's left to leave is us and the small ones. I mean, the next biggest, I believe, is Canal Fulton. Lawrence Township might be bigger than Canal Fulton. But certainly, you know, not to hate on Hills and Dales, but if Hills and Dales left, that's not going to significantly increase the cost to the rest of us. As far as I have been told, the only agency ever to leave was Perry Township, and that has been I've heard many stories of how that unfurled, and that it is a very complicated situation.
So when Perry left, did we know how that affected the pricing for the other members? Have we looked into that?
I can certainly find that out for you, but they closed when Perry left, they also closed the 4th desk, which brought costs down as well.
Well, that wouldn't affect our cost. Perry's not in.
Perry, so
I'm asking, like, so
But we just,
to follow off what Jamie said, let's say, it's probably not a great chance, but what if somebody leaves? How would it affect the cost if we have a historical situation if Perry left, as they did? We should be able to see what the cost effect was that.
So,
what was to other communities.
I do not know what the specific cost effect at that point in time was. I do know that Perry was paying $13 per person for police. And that was 3 years ago. And we are now being asked to pay $13.91 per person for police. So despite Perry's leaving, costs have not greatly increased over the past 3 years.
Okay. That's, closing one desk doesn't seem to bridge that gap. If you're talking $430,000, that just, I'd like to see some statistics if we could on that.
One desk is 5 full-time people. It's going to be a pretty hefty.
One desk is 5 full-time people?
Just staff, one desk,
Okay.
24/7 is going to be
Close.
5 full-time people.
Yeah, okay. So at 5, 7, well, it's still short, but definitely, yeah.
I have a question. Will this, if we, went with this model and had these civilian employees assisting the police department, would it free up any space for other employees in the police department? Because we talked about that being a benefit of this. Getting all the
Maybe
equipment out there.
600 square feet. What's going to be better at freeing up space for police, which is something we have started. We have a schedule for Friday to start this project, this Friday, is if administration upstairs can clean out its basement storage space. So there's, by my rough estimate, total down there's about 3,500 square feet. I think we can free up about 2,000 of it if we can just dedicate ourselves to sorting through boxes and scanning permanent records and digitizing them and freeing up floor space.
Okay. All right. And then these positions would not be filled, like they would be posted internally, but they would not be filled based on any kind of seniority, right? It would be based on qualifications and who's best for.
Correct.
Okay.
They'd have to interview potentially against each other.
who would interview for those positions?
So for the public safety analyst, what we've discussed is myself, Director Farina, and both chiefs. For police's admin assistant, it would be you lose the fire chief. And then for the public safety coordinators, since they're supposed to serve both departments, it would be all 4 of us again.
Thank you.
And a representative of marketing resources.
Okay.
So I appreciate all the work that's gone into the multiple presentations that we've seen about this. And I will say, when I first heard this idea, my initial reaction to it was skeptical. Like, we want, control of our own things, and giving that up has a lot of consequences. And so for me, this has really never been about money. Even though cost savings is part of it, it's never been about money. One of the things that I like best about the conversation is the evolution of what we've seen presented to us. So we've seen this plan change. Every time you've talked us through it, it's been a little bit different. And one of the things that I like about it is at this moment, I feel like it's really collaborative. So people from council, the mayor, administration, folks from the police department team have all looked at this in a lot of different ways. We spent time observing, we went to the Red Center, we went to other places, we talked about the roles. Initially, when this was presented, the roles looked very different. A lot of conversations have had, people have asked a lot of questions, we've challenged each other's opinions a lot, and I think that that's really good, and I really like the evolution of it that we've seen. One of the things I like the most about the discussion is the opportunity to be in control of our own destiny. So we've talked about all of these things that could cause us to change. Whether it's costs going up, which is part of, when this initially started, it was kind of connected to cost. There's a lot of variables in costs that we don't know. We know staffing costs, we can make good estimates about what those will look like. We know that they're gonna go up, but there's a lot of other costs that we really don't know. They could be anything. And we also talked about outside forces. So could someone else require us to make a change? There's a lot of things that could cause us to have to change. In this moment right now, and John, you said 5, I don't know if it's 5 exactly, but there's not very many communities left in the county that provide their own dispatching service. And from a cost perspective, we'll never be able to justify the cost of it. So it's something that will always come up on the radar in the future. And we know that there are outside forces that could cause us to have to change. So in this moment, by looking at this in a collaborative way, we have an opportunity to say, okay, if we wanted to embrace this change and do it on purpose, how would we do it on purpose? How would we transition roles in the police department? Because our dispatch team does more than just emergency and non-emergency dispatching. So how do we unwind all of those things? How do we make sure that the police department doesn't lose the support that they have in all of those different functions? And I think you really see that reflected in this plan. And so we have the opportunity, I keep saying it's like a lightning strikes kind of opportunity. We have an opportunity in this moment to embrace change and say, do we want to be in control of what happens to us? Or do we want to wait until we're forced to change by someone else? And if we wait until someone else forces us to change, will they be so generous? And so I think that's the right question. I think going through this process is the right way to look at it. Tonight, what you're asking is for us to, can we continue to go down the path of exploring what this looks like? We're still not at the place of like, do we do it or we don't do it? But if we decide not to do this now, we don't end the question from being asked. If we don't do this now, this question will be asked again and again in the future. It will be asked. It's not the first time that administration or council have asked this question and looked at it. And we don't do anyone any favors by not taking a look at this opportunity right now and saying, can we embrace this change and be part of it? So I appreciate the work that's been done. I appreciate the work that's been done by everybody that's been a part of this. And I like that it has opportunities for folks to transition to different roles. And if we wait until the future forces us to change, will we still have those same opportunities? I think that's the right question to ask. How does that really serve anyone the best by just prolonging it until the future?
Well said.
I think,
Go ahead.
go ahead, John.
Well, once we make this decision, we can never go back, which is a big thing. Right now, the equipment, they said they were able to fix it for up to 2 years. Okay, so that's another thing. We don't have to make this decision today or tomorrow. We have some time, and letting them look and get the answers that we're looking for and stuff is a good thing, but we still have, some time.
I was just going to throw out there, this conversation has changed. I feel, maybe I'm picking up on things and just listening to things that aren't the main focus of the conversation, but it seems like since we first started talking about this, it was about the money. And now it seems like we're talking about, our hand might be forced down the road, or providing what we think is best for our employees, that we're asking to go out and fight fires and fight crime. I guess, and maybe this is a question that can't be answered, but I'm just going to ask it anyways. Is this about saving money? Or is this about providing the best possible tools for our men and women who are in our safety forces?
So as the finance chair, I still think it's partially about money. I think that's the way we run all of our businesses. Whether you're at home, whether in my own business at work, That's what we're tasked to do. That's what we're mandated by our constituents to do. We just put an initiative on the ballot where people said no. They said, you have a budget issue, fix it. We were told that numerous times now. We're going to be asking to build a 1-unit fire and EMS station. People are going to look and say, well, what have you done to cut costs? Where have you sacrificed? And honestly, we have looked at all the departments. Dispatch was one that came up, but we have looked at fire. It's one of the reasons they haven't had a firehouse, because we have cut costs. We've looked at streets. We've cut half the streets that were going to be done. This is a cost-saving measure, but not at the expense of safety by any means. In my position, I guess with all the things I do with leadership and engagement and trainings, people need to know the job that they're supposed to do. Right now, that job is crossed. They don't know if they're doing dispatch, they don't know if they're doing police. And at some point, that line should not be crossed. Any level of Maslow's hierarchy says, do you know what you need to do in your job? This gives those 10 individuals the ability to do the best possible job. Maybe half of those people only want to do dispatch. Maybe they don't want to work with police on a daily basis. So now they're going to have 3 different desks that they rotate and become experts at every single desk. To me, that sounds amazing. They're doing exactly what they know what it is. Dispatch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's all bulleted. And now the police have a dedicated force to do civilian support, to do public safety analysts, to do administrative assistance, to do their public safety coordinators, all the things that they say they have wanted. This was put together with their expertise and with what they wanted. We looked at all the other agencies that are doing the same stuff. So in my area, yes, it is a way to save $400,000 per year. So when the citizens ask, what have you done to save money? Well, we did this at the expense of safety, not in the least. Not in the least. Just because it's housed in Jackson does not mean we are going to a Jackson facility. It's a location. That's all it is. So Jackson's using it, Masson's using it, Hills and Dales. When was the last time that you have heard that something has gone wrong because of the Red Center goofing up on dispatch? So to me, it's both. We're accomplishing job satisfaction, increasing that potentially, giving the ability for people to do exactly what they want and know their job duties, and saving $400,000+ a year. And all we're asking tonight is that we go forward and talk about that contract.
There's 2 things I can't get past. And that's the letter from Chief Kent and letter from our fire chief as well. I mean, when the police chief and the fire chief don't support it, I have a really tough time getting past the people that live and breathe it. It's just, that's so hard to get past. And again, I think we're still at a position, our hand is not forced. It's entirely not forced. I don't think we're ready. I really struggle. And last night, so I sat down and I read both chief's letters. I can't get past that. I'm not the guy that lives and breathes this and works every day. So for me, that's just the biggest hurdle for me. It's tough. And then sitting with dispatch, I mean, when's the last time we've heard something about our dispatch messing up?
We don't hear about any.
Exactly.
That's the point. That's my point.
It's either about money or it's about service. And I
No,
think
that's not
that,
true.
well,
We have cut many
prevented.
different areas to save money for the city.
We've not, if we really want to go down that path, we have a recurring revenue issue. We don't have a one-time cost issue. All of our costs, every time we have a budget issue, we take money from our general fund and our investments and we put it back in. We have a recurring revenue cost. If we want to talk about that, present it as that, and talk about that going forward. I have no problem with, if it's going to be about money, then say it's about money. That's fine. But changing it back and forth, that
But why
kind of
can't it
irritates
be?
me.
Why can't it be for all
I'm
of
not saying
it?
it can't, but let's not hide the fact that are we looking at this? Would we be looking at this if issue 7 passed?
I would hope, because it's still about efficiency.
That's
And
it.
for me, it's still about
I'm not
the
sure that we
employees
do.
doing the best that they can job in the roles that are assigned.
Okay.
I truly believe that this new support staff will serve the police better, and we will get better efficiency and support from our police department with these people dedicated to them and not splitting tasks.
You know, as you're talking, I was wanting to interject. I was struck, was it about a week or so ago, we had a Cleveland news station do a fantastic story about a situation that happened at the YMCA. Was it last year?
No, it was a couple weeks ago.
Oh, it was
Couple
just this
weeks
past
ago.
spring. If my numbers are correct, there was a 90-second response time.
Why do you think that would be different?
I don't know. I did.
Could the same thing happened at the Y in Jackson?
I mean, it very
probably
well
has.
could have. Very well could have. But I just think that we've got a system that works. I don't hear complaints about
It's not
what
about
we have right
complaints.
now. I think that it is.
It's not about
I
complaints.
just question
No one has been-
what level of service may decrease by changing this.
So at this point, do we want to see if we want to move it forward?
So that would be the item that we would move forward, is negotiating that contract so that we could actually have that item to compare.
Yeah,
This would be exactly what it is,
yeah.
and then you could decide, is that what you want to do or not?
So right now, we're just moving to initiate conversations with the Red Center to see kind of the questions that you wanted to ask
fair?
John.
If we're gonna keep moving, we need authority to actually negotiate a contract.
We need to know how many seats we can get on the board. You know, can we get 3 and have the same level of authority as Jackson and Massillon do? You know, but we can't find that out until we
So let's keep those
negotiate
conversations going.
a contract. Still don't have to approve the contract, but we still know what we're voting on.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll make a motion to authorize administration to negotiate a contract for regionalizing with the Red Center.
Second?
All in
Roll
favor?
call.
We can do that. Yeah.
All right.
Member Orr?
Yes, just because we're negotiating.
Member Wyrick?
Yes.
Member Owens?
Yes.
Member Cleister?
No,
Member Stroya?
No.
Member Warren?
Yes.
With 4 yeses, the motion is approved.
Motion passes 4-2.
I don't think we have nothing to lose
Yeah.
by them going, and we'll get some more questions answered and
Finding out
stuff.
information.
We can always vote no on the contract,
Or yes.
or yes. Sorry about that.
Okay, so moving on to Parks and Recreation. Christine?
5D.
Oh, 5B. Okay, so sticking in personnel and safety. Wilson.
Yeah, so either Ben or Gina, do one of you want to take this? I'm sorry, Catherine. I'm looking at Catherine, I said Gina.
Okay. So you have the Chapter 155 personnel regulations. So you'll see that we have made a few amendments to the schedule for the exec ordinance in here for the positions. And the first one you'll see, we have the title of IT systems and public policy analyst. Just kind of shortening that up, that was the position that we had, and we're changing that to public policy, public safety analyst. That salary range is already approved in there. The next one you'll see is a new position. As you know, when we lost the director of administration, we did not backfill the director of administration, so we don't have a new position. I elevated into that position. My position was backfilled, so we are still down a full-time person that was in that position. And as you know, that we did quite a bit of economic development. So what you're proposing here is to create an economic development position, setting that at the maximum, that's the cap salary that may not necessarily be the range that we will hire at. I did forward job description with details, give had a chance to look that over. There's no questions I can answer that as far as what we're looking for. Economic development is obviously critical to all cities, and many cities have this position, so they can focus entirely in that area. We see this position as someone that will be the primary point person for the TIF IRG, in addition to many other duties. We at one time even had community outreach coordinator position, we never filled, but this could be kind of a hybrid of both. Doing both community outreach, it's not just bringing in new businesses, but it's also touching base with the current ones and retaining businesses. So we feel it's a critical position. Below that, you'll see human resources generalist. That is not a new position, that's more of a title correction. We had the position of administrative specialist. Initially, that was intended for a higher level administrative person. The person that it was intended mainly was doing a lot of human resources duties. We also had two other individuals that elevated into that role. However, their duties weren't truly exempt duties. They were more on the administrative side. So you'll see below that, administrative specialist has moved back down into hourly. The Department of Labor has regulations, the Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA, has a couple of new regulations, one coming out July 1st, and then again, January 1st of 2025, that sets both a minimum compensation standard if somebody is going to be called exempt, as well as there's always a duty, a level of duty that has to be passed in order for a position to be determined to be exempt. So in looking at our staff, our person handling human resources does have a level of decision-making and autonomy, which would qualify as an exempt position. So we're kind of title correcting that to be a human resources generalist. Again, the cap on that position is listed there. That's not where the person's paid. Below that, the administrative specialist, you see this is moved down into the hourly level, and then below that is the position of public safety coordinator, set with the hourly. Right there, that's the cap hourly rate.
So the HR position is not necessarily going to be a new hire, if I heard you correctly. It's going to be somebody who currently is doing the role and slotted into that position to more appropriately align with duties. Okay.
Yes, about a year ago, our administrative specialist, Kelly Hart, received her certification in human resources through the Society of Human Resource Management. And so what we're doing is she does now handle our making hiring decisions. First, she handles a lot of the interviews at the first round level and a lot of the part-time. She used to always have me helping her with that, and I've been able to, with her abilities in recruiting and staffing and general HR duties, I've been able to trust her level of hiring in that. She also does benefits, workers' compensation, she does HRIS, which is our human resources information system, so she does the duties of what a human resource generalist does.
Right, she's great, and I kind of figured that was who you'd be moving into that position.
You would still handle the discipline, right?
Yes, there's
Okay.
usually a higher level that's,
Yeah.
handling personnel, and that's always been at the administration, director of administration level.
So who would the HR generalist report to?
To the director of administration, through the deputy director of administration, that's before.
So I want to make sure that what has happened in the past doesn't happen in the past. I want to make sure that there's an advocate for our workers. And I fear that the structure is not correct that way. Is there been any other discussion on other structures or some sort of process that can make sure that there's an advocate for everybody?
We mean if they don't feel comfortable coming to the director of administration, if there was an issue with it.
And I'm not specifically.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
A
just
lot of
saying.
companies do have, some HR departments do have sort of a fourth line.
Yeah.
So
Okay, yeah, I would appreciate
fifth
that.
line.
You said you had something that no one really reported. What was that? Is it more for health? We had something that we agreed for.
I think she's
Oh,
talking
yeah,
about the EAP.
The employee assistance program, that's something would be, that's not really a reporting. It's definitely something we could look into.
So in thinking of these, are there any that you feel like we could wait on? Is the economic,
That's, I totally, I don't think we're at a point right now where we need to add an economic specialist. At $80,000 a year, when we have a recurring revenue issue, I don't think that's a smart idea.
Well, we wouldn't hire at 80,000, that's the cap. And doing some basic research, calling it an economic development specialist, not manager or director, would lend more to the 60, 65, range is where we would look. Also, we did cut the contract that we had, in addition to the director of administration doing economic development. It was doing it with a consulting agency who paid $48,000 a year for it, and that was the Montrose Group. We cut that contract. We also did not backfill the administrative specialist position that we had in place. So we're down the full-time position of administrator, we're down the full-time position of administrative specialist, and we cut a contract. So it's over $204,000 actually that was cut in payroll contract.
What would the specialist do? What would be the specific job title of the specialist?
The economic development specialist, there is a job description, the duties in it, and I can send it to you, including all the duties, but primarily it would be in working with businesses, just like I said before, a little bit of combination of what the community outreach manager was going to do, a little bit more of, you think back to where Eric Balls was here as a economic development director, and he was many years ago. That piece has sort of gotten lost. He sort of went out and tried to, brand the city, sell the city. You want to start a business, you want to come here. Here's why. We're centrally located. We're I-77. We have a low income tax base. You've got to be doing something, recruiting businesses. And like I said, on the other side, you also recruiting businesses, touching base. Some of these that we lost, could they have stayed if somebody could have reached out to them? Economic development is more than just one thing. We had somebody doing some of that and thinking in the future, and there was good development happening. Meyer happened. We have other, development that's happening in the city, but there could be so much more. What are they doing in all the other cities?
So you're thinking like the marketing aspect?
It's a combination of all of that.
It's almost like a salesperson
If that's the
for,
case, why wouldn't we hire someone in marketing?
Do you think it's the wrong title for it?
I think it is. I don't think, I think what we've all been lacking, it's, the public can certainly attest to this, it's our communication. We don't have the outlets that we used to have. Most companies, if it's a company over 100 people, they have a marketing department. We don't have that. Ours is, honestly, it's kind of, it's a team effort, and I think we do okay. But if we had somebody that specialized in marketing ahead of economics, I liked what the Montrose did. I think that they were very specific to the tasks that we assigned them to. I'm not sure that we hire someone, an economic specialist, they're going to be able to cover the things that the Montrose group did.
They should be able to be keyed into many of the initiatives that Montrose were. So people that have this title and they are professionals in economic development, they join these economic development trade organizations. They're going to these seminars and all of these updates, and that's a lot of what Montrose did for us. They sort of monitored legislative updates, let us know, told us about TIFs and JEDs and CIAs and all of these things that are key in the economic development world. And that's important for someone who has that knowledge in it. A marketing person may not have that. So some of the key things that are in the description of the position, obviously I said already, attract, retain, expand businesses within the municipality, coordinate and support economic development projects, including site development, infrastructure improvements, tax incentive programs, foster relationships with local business and developers. It's kind of getting that pipeline going. It doesn't just happen. It's got to be actively pursued. Conduct economic and demographic research, inform development strategies and decision making. Organize and participate in public workshops and events to engage the community, gather input on economic development initiatives, collaborate with local, regional, state economic development organizations to align efforts and leverage resources. Work with the Department of Development to modernize the city's zoning code to promote economic growth and stability. So those are just a few of the key responsibilities. There's also grant and incentive management. We would like more of that. These are very hard duties for someone else to do in addition to the other duties. And, as we know, previous person did a lot of it, and then, I would step in to free up for all the other things that was required in the director of administration position. I think we saw, or read through the papers, City of Louisville tries to have someone be both a city administrator and an economic development director. One was going to suffer. They were either going to run the city or they're going to do economic development. And so that's why it really is key to have a position focused on that if you want economic development in your city. If you don't, and the status quo is where it's at, then maybe we accept it.
And I don't think it can be understated, particularly in these next 3 years, how much of a lift this Hoover TIF is going to be. I mean, there are.
I'll believe that when I see it. I mean, honestly, for us to spend $80,000 for the potential of them doing something when they have the history of doing what they've done to our community, I don't buy that at all. I'm 100% opposed to that. for the city.
Well, I think in economic, a couple years back, probably, I don't know, 8, 10 years ago, you had Doug Lane, it was with the chamber. They had the chamber try to do it, and that failed. It failed terribly. You need a person, an in-house person to do that. Not, you can't outsource that. And being in sales for almost 40 years, it's a lot like being the salesperson of North Canton.
Right.
You sell the benefits, a safe town, a convenient town, property's great. Why not move your business here? Stuff of that nature.
I agree. I agree with the aspect of marketing. I agree with what John is saying. I guess my questions lie with, we are slowly exiting the land banking game, although there are still properties there. But I guess beyond the properties we currently have, and God willing, the creek don't rise, we'll see something over there at the Uber company. But beyond that, what property do we have for somebody to move their business to North Canton? I mean, I don't know that we're necessarily dealing with an overabundance of property. Now, I love what you're saying. I think this is a fantastic idea. I just wonder, are we putting the cart before the horse here?
Well, good point, but you don't know what you don't know. You just know what property do we have. You don't know what property
Right.
we have. You are actively out there, you're involved in that development community.
Yeah.
That's how this happens.
But I mean,
But doesn't
just
Stark Development Board do that?
Well, that's something that you'd be connected with.
But we are connected. They are supposed to be representing us.
No.
But I mean, just
Are
simply
they?
driving
Goes to
down the
Canton
street, you
first.
can see that there's not much retail property
So
left.
we're putting
There's not
ourselves
much
in
vacant land to build anew, but.
Well, we just annexed. Annexation would be a key thing for that person to do. Maybe we can get a couple. I think we're in negotiations with someone to go in now, but there's plenty of room over there, and there's plenty more to annex.
Correct, and let me also say, like, some of the boards and commissions that we have that are economic development, related, our CIC, we have the TURF, we have the CRA, we have these, and, they're every year, and you're on the housing commission board, right? We have the vision center, that's it,
Right.
And, we don't really have a lot of activity there, and I think what we have was the fire full. And, down in arcades, talking about being in arcades, we have this big dream show.
Liam doesn't
All
bite.
these pictures, he tried to brand the city back then. They have these pictures of like a little boy fishing on the pond over there, and it was like, come to North Canton, hometown USA, and that's what they were branding us as then. And, he did a lot with connecting businesses to go into the Hoover properties, Crew Bridge and some of those. He had videos, you can, break them up online to see, we're North Canton, and everybody can locate the business And that's what has stopped us since then.
Well, and I think just because we maybe don't have a lot of space to fill, I don't know, I'd like to get ahead of it. I'd like to have a vision of what we want for our community, not just something becomes available and whoever purchases it comes in. We should be recruiting the kind of businesses here. I don't think it's about just filling empty buildings with whoever comes around. And then I also think, I think it's dangerous to have the director of administration kind of leading the economic development area, because there's no transparency. I mean, this is, we've run into this. What deals were, no one knows. There's one person who knows what's going on. And I think we need someone who's reporting to someone doing that.
I've done grants, I've done park grants, and let me tell you, grants are a lot of work, and there's a lot of detail, and there's a lot of things you can't miss. And so when you want somebody out there negotiating tax incentives and looking for grant opportunities and business development, it's a lot, and you don't want to miss a step. So this is an exempt position. I understand your fear, I can see it. If we were to find that it wasn't a valuable position, if we were to find that we may not even find a person, I mean, our rate may be too low, I'm not sure. But if we, find that this is a valuable addition to the team, if this is what we want growth and economic development, and we want to have an identified, qualified person to drive that, and we take a chance on doing this. It's a success. If it's not successful,
So I do remember on the floor of council when IRG gave their presentation, there was a commitment for a nominal amount of money to administer the TIF. I don't recall the amount, but I mean, I could see part of that paying for this position if that would be one of their job titles, one of their job activities to do that. So there is that, but I'd really, I don't know if changing the title or I'd like to see a focus on marketing.
That's the good thing about a job description. They are living, breathing documents. They can be amended. Obviously first we're going out to recruit for one, we want to get it solid. And then as it's moving along, that's why, like I said, originally we thought it would be economic development coordinator, and then I said, no, coordinator's gonna be too low. We're gonna get someone who coordinates at an administrative level for someone else. Director, too high. Manager, they're not really managing anyone right now. So the specialist is really maybe the economic development specialist.
I mean, I'm wondering if there's even like more of a contract basis where someone could come in that is actually high level, is connected. I mean, I'm thinking of some of the people that are doing Alliance and maybe that have done the job and could incorporate, because you are right.
Contractor type
We're
situation.
missing those meetings. We are the player that's not there. And even being more associated with Director Development Board, we don't have a seat at the table right now. And so when negotiations are happening, we aren't moving forward. So is there a contract basis? Because I think economic development is a niche. And I think it's very different than marketing. And I don't want that person at the swearing in of the fire chief, taking pictures, and then the next morning putting on economic development. I think they're really different specialties. And I don't think we're gonna find that same person, or we're gonna get minimum level of quality from those.
And we're discussing it here because your input is so valuable to this and in developing this and what's the vision of the city.
I'm kind of like the thought about our focus group. Are there people out there that maybe they have retired or maybe they've been in that business world? But I feel like it has to be with that kind of connection to kind of see that bigger picture, be available for those meetings, and maybe there's other contracts.
Yeah.
Person would obviously be very key in the CIC.
Yep.
Really drive our CIC. Our CIC, as you know, was defunct for years, and then it's come back and more in the land making, but there's so much more to CIC can do.
Right. Hey,
So
could
I
you,
agree with Matt about the element that community relations, public relations, whatever you want to call it, that element being something that's needed. And I think you could marry that with the economic development and make a position that was economic development and community relations or whatever you called it. But that is a distinction from what Stephanie's talking about of a specialized niche economic development individual. And so I think that being clear, before we could move forward with approving a position, that distinction has to be clear. Which one of those is it that we want to pursue? A specialized economic development person, or do we want someone to do economic development and community relations together, because those two together do make sense for our city? I think we need to know the answer to that before we could say yes or no.
Because it's really different going out to a business and kind of almost like the chamber, right? Like that's kind of their job, to make sure that area businesses have a voice in the site. So is it that, what do you think of the city? How do you feel about how we're responding, blah, blah, blah? That's really different than sitting in meetings and understanding TIFs and bringing businesses here and what you can offer and state regulations and ordinances.
Is it though? Is it really different?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's,
Yeah, free data, so in this position would be analyzing trends and, in the economic development world, economic trends and opportunities and challenges and gathering what our business community would not be.
I think if you put like the marketing with almost a development, you had like some different words you were using, like that fit, but when you go to that higher end, it is different.
Well, that's
Your
why-
goals would never have done marketing.
That's why I think that economic development and community relations specialist would make sense as a package, and I think that would make sense for the needs of the city. But I think that needs to be clear. I think we need to be clear about what that is and maybe hold that into the title and the job description and then come back and allow us to look at it again. Because I think
Yeah.
right now,
Economic development, community.
or business,
relations,
right, but I think you have lots of trouble finding that person.
Yeah.
Well, and
You
two,
won't-
in
that
the-
doesn't exist.
In the job market.
It exists.
It exists, but finding that
In
person.
the job market, in a specialist level position, it's more likely that you get the person that you're looking for in that economic development and community relations specialist. Ooh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Space. I think that's more clear as far as recruiting.
It is,
what you're
than
looking
throwing
for.
in marketing.
And when you look at that pool of responsibility, is there a need at the full-time position level to do all of that stuff? Feels more realistic than just an economic development specialty kind of person.
Wow.
I agree with you, it feels more like
Yeah.
a contracting than like a full-time person.
And maybe there's a need.
We desperately
for both.
need
Yeah,
a
there might-
community relations
Probably is.
function for sure.
I will go back and do more research and see what's out there and come up with some titles and look at some duties and.
It's all about relationships, economic relationships.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So is there something that we need to, because there were a bunch of things all together to move forward on this one. Is there something that we need to isolate?
I don't
Or
think
do
we
we
need to.
just pull the,
Well, let's see.
you know what I mean? Because the HR generalist part is more
Or,
like
I mean,
clarifying.
is any of this a priority right now, or would it be okay if we table this to next committee meeting? Okay.
Okay.
Postpone.
So let's-
Postpone.
Postpone,
let's-
yeah.
let's just- I'll make a motion to postpone.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to 6, Parks and Recreation.
Okay, so I think it sounds like we are going to be changing the registration for recreation facilities in the city, allowing them to be rented by the hour rather than by the day or the half day. And this kind of came about because we are getting a new reservation rental portal, correct? Okay. That's more user-friendly and less expensive, and it will allow us to make some of these changes. My understanding is that council doesn't approve these changes, you're just making us aware. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so do you want to make us aware?
So I'll start with the fun half. So our in looking at everything, one of the things we looked at was our recreation rental software, which is how people go online and reserve stuff. And we were really paying for too much. The software did a whole bunch of things that we never used it for. And we realized that we were coming up real quickly on the date to say whether we were renewing that contract or not. So we went out and we got quotes, and we found a new vendor that is more affordable and doesn't, have all the extra bells and whistles that we never use attached onto it. So on your screens is the sneak preview of what the new portal looks like. It's much more picture-based, much more user-friendly, not quite as many spreadsheets to click through for people reserving facility. Liam, why don't you go ahead and click on Civic Center.
And how much did we save, Ben?
We will save approximately $4,000 a year. So not make or break, but little bits add up. So you click on a facility, then it shows you all the things available at that facility to rent. So with this, Danielle in our office, who handles rentals, as we were setting up the new portal, was explaining to us the feedback she gets from people that I don't really want it for the whole half day, or I really want it over lunch, so then I end up buying both half days when I could have just paid for 4 hours in the middle of the day and I would have had what I wanted. And can't you guys just go to a per hour rental, and then, if I want it for a long time, I'll end up paying more, but if I only want it for 2 hours, I'll end up paying less. And so we tried to listen, and we changed all of our rates except for Civic Center and Dogwood to per hour rates. How we came up with the rates was we essentially did the math to figure out what we're charging per hour right now, and then rounded to the nearest whole $5. So for instance, the City Hall portico was $4 an hour for the half day. It is now $5 an hour. Still not breaking the bank. Dogwood and Civic Center are two most expensive. We did not change the rates at all with what's before you tonight. So this should hopefully be live June 17th, the new portal. For anybody out there who already has a reservation, don't worry, we will port over all existing reservations. There will be no cost increases for already rented facilities.
That's great. Thank you for looking at that and not just kind of going along and saying, read all this and what else is out there. That's huge. That makes a big difference.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, so no action required on that. All right, street now, Melissa.
Sure, so this is the next step for the streets replacement increased tax levy. Do you want to, Ben, fill us in on where we are in this process?
So this is the point in time to actually put it on the ballot. As previously discussed, this is written as a replacement and increase, so replace 1 mill and increase by another mill for a total of 2 mills. In your packets was the certificate from the auditors. It will raise just over $1 million a year. Our ballot language has been reviewed by the Stark County Prosecutor's Office and approved.
Is that in writing?
It is in writing.
Is that part of the process now?
Any questions or discussion?
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to move item 7A to the council agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Melissa, 17.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you take this one too, Ben.
In the future, these will be Liam. This is something, this is a process managed by council's office, which is releasing developers when they build a new neighborhood, give us bonds for public improvements they're going to install. Phase 5 of the sanctuary, Rob has certified that they have completed all of their public improvement, water lines, sewer lines, street, all those wonderful things, and that they did make it through a full frost and thaw cycle without significantly breaking down, so we will accept them as city property. And so this releases their bond that we would have tapped if a road did break in the middle of the winter because it wasn't installed properly or something like that.
So I'll also make a motion, I'm sorry, any questions or discussion? I'll make a motion to move item 7B to the council agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to utilities, formerly rubbish. Ada?
Might still be rubbish, depends on who you ask. So this item is basically, it's a mutual aid agreement for us to join the Water and Wastewater Agency Response Network. This would be basically for having a response to natural or human-caused disasters as it pertains to water. And would Ben or Liam like to, point over here?
Side.
Perfect, all right.
So the Clerk of Warren is the water and wastewater agency response network. It is a mutual aid agreement, similar to how safety services have mutual aid. This is mutual aid in the form of if there was, like I mentioned, a natural disaster, they provide emergency public assistance program. They also have like FEMA disaster trainings, emergency management, business continuity resources, cybersecurity workshops and tools. It's an agreement that obviously we would enter into if you read all the details into it. It's very spelled out exactly what the agreement would be. So for example, if our community experiences a natural disaster and we need more personnel and more equipment, we would be part of it. People that are part of this in the state agency would respond to us. Likewise, if we had to respond to another community. And how that works is there is a member responsibility on whether or not we're going to respond to a request for assistance. We have to identify who the authorized official will be at the city as part of this agreement. And then the authorized official would inform the requesting member whether or not we had the resources to respond. And if we are willing and we are able to provide the assistance, then there is a compensation agreement as far as our people would still be paid. We would basically bill that that city that would need the response for our time, for the equipment. It's spelled out in here, everything as far as if they had to be sheltered somewhere, if they would go somewhere and spend time overnight food and shelter, there's per diem. Communication says the requesting member would provide the responding member personnel with legal equipment. This is part of the National Incident Management Reporting System, NIMS. Obviously, if there's any equipment, there's also details in the mutual aid agreement how that would be billed for any equipment that they would need to use. If something were to happen to our equipment, it's spelled out how that would be for any materials and supplies. Workers' compensation is spelled out that obviously this person would still be our employee and still, if there was anything, workers' compensation would fall under us. And the agreement can be modified in writing to accommodate any operational changes as members can experience procedures. And we just have to determine if we want to be part of this. I think it's something good. We never know when we would need it. If there was something like a natural disaster, we wouldn't be able to respond in the way that we would the community.
I think it makes sense. Any questions, comments? So I move we move this forward to the agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Jay.
All right, so this next item, this is a memorandum of understanding, say that 5 times fast. This would be between us as well as the Stark Soil and Water Conservation District. And what this is they would be continuing to provide management for stormwater as it pertains to managing issues and reviewing plans and implementing stormwater solutions. So I don't know if there's any pieces that you could go over additionally, or?
So this is, we have been part of this agreement already for a long period of time. Historically, Stark Soil and Water provides incredible assistance above and beyond the dollar value of the minimal amount we pay them to be part of this. Traditionally, this agreement is for 5 years. Because of the staffing changes they have recently had, they have asked for it to be 1 year. And they're doing that with all participating communities who are up for renewal this year, not just us.
Okay. Again, I think this is a great thing that we are a part of and we continue to be a part of. So with that, I would move that we put this on the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on, Mayor. It's going to give an update on the fishing.
There's our team, Mayor's Fishing for Saturday, June 1st. Our parks and city administration, a few council members came down. But we had 99 participants and families. And weather cooperated, and we had a good time for what I could share with you. The fish weren't quite biting as we wanted, but they still had fun. And Brian Hill and his team did a great job in having the park cleaned up, prepared, and his crew was cooking hot dogs and fried steaks and everything else.
Yeah.
What year was this, Mayor?
56th
56, yeah.
year. And shout out to the North Canton Eagles for their continued support of this. They staffed it with their personnel and volunteers, and they do a fantastic job.
Do they pay for the fish as well?
They
Or do
pay
we?
for all the prizes, the trophies, these kids leave with fishing
Oh,
poles
the
and sleeping
prizes
bags
are
and
great.
tents and tackle gear,
Wow.
great prizes, all donated. The Eagles do such a great job.
That's awesome.
And that was a good event.
So once again, it was
Catch and
Everyone-
release, nobody went home with any fish.
Nope.
And then are people, this is just a side question, do people just keep fishing all week and hope to catch it?
right now it's open fishing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still
Yeah,
catch.
it's open fishing, so
Okay.
it's still catching it. But we stocked it, and they just didn't quite get acclimated to their
environment, yeah.
But there was some big catfish caught, and we had, I think, a couple repeat winners from last year that caught the big fish. So, again, families and the kids enjoyed it.
And what did you say the biggest one was?
I don't remember.
Oh, I thought you said.
23 inches.
23.
23-inch catfish was the winner.
Four categories. They award the girl who caught the most fish, the boy who caught the most fish, the girl who caught the longest fish, and the boy who caught the longest
Aiden we had to go to town. Aiden was bummed. That's his favorite event all year. So he was.
fish. The ancient out, the greatest.
It's actually 13 today. Yeah. So this is his last one. Although he looks small enough.
President Troy, can I add something else after
Sure.
this? Just want to remind everybody on June 6th is our fire department public walkthrough, okay? And that's from 5 to 7 at the Station 1 end. This one's at Station 1.
Both stations, 1 and 2.
Stations are going to be open?
Yep.
And 2, okay. Yeah, from 5 to 7, from 2 to 6. So
That's good.
see if our community want to visit.
Did we get that on the utility bills this time?
I think it was.
We still have the lead service line reminder running on our utility bills. It was in the newsletter, which went out today or yesterday.
Okay.
And I did put out there, there's been questions to the office about the roundabouts. And a couple things on, Ohio Department of Transportation, so put a couple brochures out there for instructions on thinking about driving roundabouts. And our roundabout right now, it's at Charlotte, Maine, and Wilmot. Hopefully we'll have that completed by June the 14th, that Friday. And that takes care of landscaping, striping, final blacktop and concrete work. So weather cooperating, we'll not have that done by October.
Great.
Almost there.
Almost there.
Yeah.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?